Fist bump diplomacy seems to have failed. Saudi Arabia has decided to cut oil production, seemingly in agreement with Russia's plans. Now US Democrats are up in arms over stopping arms sales to the Saudis. On Monday, the US Senate Foreign Relations Committee chairman, Robert Menendez, called for ending all US weapon supplies to Riyadh. Menendez said that he would not allow any cooperation with Saudi Arabia until they reassess their stance on the Russia-Ukraine war. He effectively said that Riyadh had to choose a side between Russia or Ukraine and, by extension, the United States. The US and other Ukrainian allies have been trying to stop oil money from funding Russia's invasion. Saudi Arabia's move to limit oil production will make oil more expensive and therefore help fill Russia's war chest. Menendez joins a growing list of American lawmakers who have hit out at Riyadh after last week's oil cut announcement. Senator Richard Blumenthal and Member of Congress Ro Khanna suggested similar action against Saudi Arabia in a publication. They said that Riyadh's decision to cut oil was directed against the United States. But Washington could hit back by stopping weapon supplies. So if the US does stop cooperating with Saudi Arabia, how far will they go? Not all the way, apparently. Menendez said that he was willing to make exceptions and that he was against an outright ban on all support. He said he would block arms sales beyond what is absolutely necessary to defend US personnel and interests. So what exactly constitutes US interest? He didn't give any details. Reports say one of the reasons that the Democrats are furious is because the oil cut comes just before the November midterms. The elections will be tightly fought and could result in the Democrats losing control of the Senate. And the last thing they need is a rise in fuel prices affecting voter preferences. While the US is accusing Saudi of playing oil politics, Riyadh has denied these charges. A Saudi official refuted the US allegations during an interview on Friday. Saudi claims that its moves are not a slight to the US, but in fact relations have been chilly between the Biden administration and Riyadh. Reports say Washington has been attempting to convince OPEC to keep oil production stable for months. But the tensions sparked by Biden's promise to make Saudi Arabia into a pariah have not gone away. Even his recent trip to Saudi Arabia, where he fist-bumped the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, failed to secure an oil deal. After months of trying the carrot approach, it seems that Washington is now eyeing the stick.
In front-line and fence-line communities.
Now, to explore this subject further, let me introduce my guests in this broadcast. We have with us Lester Munson from Washington, D.C. He is a political analyst who has consulted with various governments from around the world. And also joining me is Ahmed Ali Ibrahim from Riyadh. He is a US-Saudi relations expert. I welcome both of you to WION World as one.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Lester, let's start with you. What do you make of the US Senator's strong remarks, clearly asking Saudi Arabia to pick a side?
Well, I think Senator Menendez, it's important to note, Senator Menendez is a strong ally of President Biden, and he's seeking in this move to give President Biden the latitude to reset the U.S. relationship with Saudi Arabia by kind of throwing the onus on Saudi Arabia. He is also giving an opportunity to the White House to maneuver and to make corrections in the relationship and reset things so they are more advantageous to the United States. There's no doubt that this announcement of a decrease in production was very harmful to the White House. I think they were surprised by it. Frankly, they should not have been. They've been mismanaging this relationship for the last year and a half or so. So a lot of this is on the White House. But Senator Menendez is trying to do a favor to the president, taking action out of his hands a little bit and giving him the opportunity to reset things so it will be more beneficial to the White House and to the United States.
Right. Ahmed, I want to take the same question from you, get your perspective. We saw the fist-bump diplomacy between the US president and MBS earlier in the year. How will the US senator's recent remark affect the same?
Well, in Saudi Arabia, usually when we receive a guest and especially a great ally, we like to shake hand, but it's a fist bump. Again, the relationship between this administration and Saudi Arabia went to the downstream. It's an extension of the Obama era. And basically, Saudi Arabia and the United States is tied by the hip. It's not about an election of the White House for 4 years. It goes deeper for 8 decades. This relationship has so many in common, rather a little bit differences. But as your honorable guest has stated that this cut came in a really bad time, we call it the funny time at the United States, the midterm election and the president's election. Usually all these kind of voices start saying these kind of things in the floors. I think this is, for a consumption within the party. The Democrats are divided, and this is absolutely nonsense. The relationship is much stronger and much greater, and Saudi Arabia is always committed. Saudi Arabia's decision with the 23 countries, OPEC and OPEC Plus, came in a unanimous decision to cut these kind of cut 2 million barrels, but it came on the election of the midterm election. And usually OPEC and OPEC Plus, especially Saudi Arabia, does not play any internal politics in any other countries, especially the United States.
Right, that's a very interesting point that you've raised there. Lester, coming back to you now, Washington says that it could hit back by stopping weapons supplies to the Saudis. I'm quoting, beyond what is absolutely necessary to defend U.S. personnel and U.S. interests. So I ask you, what are these U.S. interests?
Well, the U.S., of course, is very interested in stability in the Middle East. It is very interested in the integrity of Saudi Arabia and other nation states in the region. It is, of course, a region of great turmoil. There are a number of conflicts, generally supported by Saudi Arabia's rival Iran. Iran and the United States are at dagger points in many places. So the U.S. has an interest in supporting Saudi Arabia, other countries in the region, as they push back against this Iranian aggression. So there's no doubt there's a commonality of interests. I respect the views of my colleague on the show, and I think he's right on many points. I do think Saudi Arabia is taking advantage of the situation a little bit and poking at the White House and looking to get more concessions from President Biden, as you would expect they would do under these circumstances. It is in their interest to do so. Hopefully, the United States and Saudi Arabia, which are at the end of the day close friends and allies and have many things in common, can resolve this behind closed doors and not out in public.
Right. Ahmed, if I can ask you to respond to what Lester has just said and also add a question of my own, that the U.S. Senator clearly wants the kingdom to pick a side in the Ukraine war. Do you see that happening at all?
Saudi Arabia already picked the side of peace. The efforts of the Crown Prince by actually releasing prisoners from Russia, and especially 2 Americans among these people who's been released. This is a sign of Saudi Arabia is trying to side with peace. We don't want to, get involved in any conflicts. It's enough that the conflicts we have in the GCC countries and the Arab nations. We have the biggest terrorist regime, probably 3,000 kilometers away from us. We have a lot of challenges in this region, so we are actually facing our own things on land. But we've never politicized oil. Actually, on the contrary, when Saudi Arabia and OPEC Plus decided to cut back, there's something called the spare capacity that is it is very vital for these kind of terms. When the oil demand came after COVID and after the cyber attacks and after the war, there is a lot of unreal demand in the market. This has to slow down. Saudi Arabia and OPEC Plus, through all the history, has been actually normalizing the oil prices to a reasonable prices rather than the gas prices. So let's take, for example, now Germany, the Chancellor of Germany, and even Macron said, he was chanting and screaming about the U.S. policymakers, right, stop selling us LNG for 4 times what we used to get it from Russia. So it is the U.S. interest to sell these LNGs at these prices. OPEC and OPEC Plus, they see their interest in stabilizing the oil prices at a certain level. Maybe it's in a short term. It will increase inflation, but in the long term, it's going to benefit everybody else. And all these kind of cuts are revisited in 2 months' time. If the OPEC Plus see that this is going to harm the economy in any way, the production is always, they can go to the capacity. So let's say tomorrow, a big war, start taking place. We need a capacity to pump more oil in order to cover these kind of, event that comes to us. And OPEC Plus has been known through all its history. It has been regulated well. Other than that, if you leave the cartel, everybody leaves, everybody selling oil, you're going to see prices of oil at 300 barrel. And let's not forget what happened in last April when Saudi Arabia flooded the market with oil, when Russia did not actually come to a sense of, restricting themselves to the quotas of OPEC and OPEC plus. So it plays both ways. So actually it is good for stabilizing the market. I don't think there's any political agenda happened, but it is unlucky that this all happened within.
Right, but I want to thank you both for your perspective, unique perspectives each, and thank you for joining us on this broadcast with the latest.
Thank you.
WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.